יש שקט אחרי הגשם בקשת בענן, אל תדאג,
אל תדאג, אם יש כאב יש אהבה.
3 anos de vida sempre foi uma sinagoga e é também hoje uma sinagoga pluralista, igualitária, democrática, uma sinagoga que reúne as pessoas e dá as boas-vindas a todos. Então, o que nós vamos fazer hoje é ouvir a mulher que lidera o nosso movimento. Ela veio de muito longe, veio de Canadá, logo de passar rapidamente por Buenos Aires, e ela irá, após amanhã, para Recife, onde irá acontecer um congresso continental do nosso movimento, que irá reunir países como Argentina, Brasil, Chile e convidados especiais que chegarão de Israel e dos Estados Unidos, obviamente de Canadá. Então, caros amigos, eu gostaria, para apresentar a nossa presidente, passar a palavra para outro de presidente e para presidente. O presidente da nossa instituição, o Dr. Daniel Weiss Vilordo, que vai introduzir a nossa convidada. Vamos desligar os telefones celulares ou botar no silencioso para que não atrapalhem a nossa palestrante e a nossa noite. E o Daniel vai também explicar a dinâmica como nós iremos conduzir esta noite. Sejam todos muito bem-vindos.
Então, boa noite a todos. Agradeço em nome da SIBRA a presença de todos. E o que nós vamos fazer vai ser apresentar a nossa convidada. E na sequência vamos ouvir um pouco ela falar. Ela vai dar um panorama para a gente, vai dar uma ideia geral do que está sendo feito na World Union no todo mundo. E a partir dali nós vamos fazer uma discussão em cima de alguns tópicos selecionados que são os talvez mais interessantes e mais importantes, e depois vamos abrir para a plateia também. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Carole Sterling, President of the World Union for Progressive Judaism. I will introduce you if you can use this.
Great, thank you.
When I met Carole in Rio during the World Union conference called Connections, I couldn't imagine that we would be here sitting together and you would be addressing hot topics in Reform Judaism to our community. Well, Carole is currently the chair of the World Union for Progressive Judaism and has held many communal leadership positions in the Jewish community, including President of Canadian Council for Reform Judaism, President of Temple Sinai Congregation of Toronto, Chair of UJA of Greater Toronto Women's Campaign, Chair of the Union of Reform Judaism biennial in 2011. She has been serving as a Senior Vice Chair of the World Union since 2013, and she's also a board member of Holy Blossom Temple, the URJ, Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion, Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs Local Partner Council, the Leo Beck Day School, and ARTSA Canada. That's the Reform Zionist Association of Canada. Carole earned both her Bachelor's of Arts degree and a diploma in secondary education from McGill University. She is a graduate of the Western Heritage Program and has received numerous awards, including the Bernovsky Award of Campaign Excellence, the UJA Federation of Greater Toronto Young Leadership Award, and the United Israel Appeal Leadership Award. Carole and her husband Jay, welcome Jay, live in Toronto and have 2 children, Lauren, son-in-law Simon, and Corey. And a grandson is called Rafi, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, Carole Sterling.
Thank you. I want to say Shabbat Shalom because it's so wonderful to see so many people in the sanctuary. But really welcome. I'm honored to have you join us this evening. And I want to thank Rabbi Gershon and Daniel for their warm welcome to Porto Alegre. We came from Argentina, where they kiss on one cheek only, and now we're in Brazil, where you kiss on two cheeks. So we're just learning the ropes, but it's a pleasure to be here. So, Hine matovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. How wonderful it is when we are together. Dear friends, my husband Jay and I are delighted to join you here at SIBRA, the beautiful Reformed congregation of Porto Alegre. We are grateful to your Rabbi Gershon and to your President Daniel for inviting us to be with you. We have just come, as I mentioned, from visiting our communities in Buenos Aires, and we are on our way to Recife for the Latin American Regional Biennial. You are blessed with incredible leadership in this region, including Raul Gottlieb and Miriam Wasserman, and we thank them for their guidance and commitment. On behalf of our President, Rabbi Dan Freelander, who will be in Recife as well, and the close to 2 million progressive Reform liberal Jews around the globe, we share in the pride of your accomplishments. I understand that several weeks ago or a month ago you enjoyed the Latin American premiere of the Debbie Friedman Suite, which I had the opportunity to hear in Israel and in Boston. Those of you who were there, I'm sure you know how beautiful it is, and it's just an example of the beautiful liturgy and music of the Reform movement. We are your partners in all the challenges you face, and we share in the pride that in your successes as well. We are all part of a large global Jewish progressive family. As I mentioned, close to 2 million people, who share your ideals and values, and as our beloved Rabbi Dick Hirsch noted, I quote, "No geographical borders or ideological boundaries can divide Jewish minds, Jewish hearts, Jewish action, and Jewish destiny." The World Union for Progressive Judaism helps to make our Jewish world smaller and brings our worlds together by strengthening progressive Jewish life and values. As a matter of fact, my husband and I took our 16-month-old grandson to Talk Shabbat at Holy Blossom Temple, where we're members, and our Rabbi Jordan Helfman introduced us to Eduardo and Angelica Goose, who are members of this community, and we had a lovely dinner with them, and we talked about Porto Alegre, and it just shows how close the Jewish family is. Wherever you go, you're home. The World Union helps to make, we have just launched a new travel app called Find a Community, which can be downloaded by going to www.wupj.org/app. Through this app, you can find a sister congregation in any and every part of the world and ensure that your community is included when folks visit this part of the world. Our mission is accomplished by helping to build strong and vibrant communities through rabbinic placement, Shomrei Torah programs, and some of you, Daniel, you probably remember when we were in Rio de Janeiro, the congregation Ari in Rio donated a Torah to our congregation Kehilat Shanghai, and it was delivered in China, and Jay and I had the opportunity to be with them when they used the Torah, and it was a very, very powerful experience. We educate and nurture and raise up well-trained Jewish leaders, lay and professional, through our seminaries, and now we're very proud to include the Ibero-American Institute for Reform Rabbinical Education in Buenos Aires. The key is to train new rabbinic leadership in languages native to their communities to both grow the congregations and to grow the movement. Our SALT Center for Leadership Development and Education, based in our headquarters at Beit Shmuel in Jerusalem, offer opportunities for lay leaders, educators, and congregational leaders to develop and build worldwide connections and relationships, all the while studying and practicing our core Reform Jewish values. We need congregational leaders who have vision and understanding to join together through the Butel Seminar for Progressive Jewish Leadership, the Bergman Seminar for Progressive Jewish Educators, and I think you have someone from the congregation who's there, right? Wonderful. And the Roswell Klal Yisrael Fellows, the Roswell Seminar for Social Justice, and the Wilkenfeld Seminar for Women. Attendees of these sessions return to their home communities, inspired, energized, empowered to take on leadership roles, and to encourage others to do the same. Around the globe, many of our communities face similar challenges. How do we engage our youth? How do we keep our doors wide open? How do we deal with same-sex and interfaith marriage? Who is a Jew? Do we acknowledge and accept patrilineal descent? How do we support Reform and Progressive Judaism in Israel? Just some of the questions that we face. Together with UJR, we have translated the Plug Chumash into Portuguese, and I understand it's going to be ready any year now, but we're working on it. And essential to growing Jewish life is having liturgy and literature in Hebrew and, of course, in your native language. Together we strive to create a vibrant Judaism that helps better our world, is open and welcoming to others, and allows each of us, alone and collectively, to achieve a meaningful and spiritual Judaism. We must ensure that our Reform values of inclusivity and social justice, which are not necessarily automatic in many parts of the world, become a reality for all communities. We are proud to partner and share with you, our brothers and sisters in Porto Alegre, and to remind you of the strength and pride of our global Jewish family. The forces that sometimes imperil our communities, like anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, are what make these communities so necessary as pillars of strength for Jews seeking safety and meaning. The World Union for Progressive Judaism's goal is to ensure that Reformed Jews can enjoy a proud and Jewish life wherever in the world they choose to live. We are thrilled and proud that you are part of our very special family. Thank you.
So Carole, let's move on to the hot topics. But before that, you live in Canada. You grew up in Montreal, but you live now in Toronto. So tell us about Canadian Jewish demographics and how do you relate to American Reform Judaism?
So one thing you need to keep in mind is that there's only one place in the world that Reformed Jews are not a minority in a minority. So Jews in every community are a minority. In America, Reformed Judaism is the largest movement. In Canada, it is a minority, as it is here. So we have to work harder to represent our values. We have to remember to not allow other people to define what we are and what we aren't. We need to be very strong and articulate our values. The Jewish community in Toronto, we have about 300,000 Jews in all of Canada. We're a very, very large country, but not very much population, mostly in Toronto and Montreal and Vancouver. And we have 27 Reform congregations. Some of them are large. The one that Jay and I belong to, Holy Blossom Temple, is about 2,000 families. Probably as small as 20 families in some of the smaller communities. So we have a Canadian council, we work together, we share best practices, our rabbis have a council, we try to be as cohesive and inclusive as possible.
I'll just make a pause to register the presence of the president of Jewish Federation, Zomir Schwartzman, who's here. So, muito obrigado, Zomir, pela presença.
Soon to retire, I understand.
Yeah, at the end of the year. Well, let's move on to the hot topics. So you mentioned them already, some of them. What can you tell us about interfaith marriage and patrilinearity?
So one of the important things to understand about Reform Judaism is the basis is we're supposed to be educated, we're supposed to study and learn, and then make our decisions and our choices based on our knowledge and our understanding of that knowledge. So for example, in the United States, many of our rabbis do interfaith marriage. Many of them adhere to patrilineal descent, meaning that the father of the child is Jewish. It's not the case in Canada. Canada is similar to Brazil, I believe, which is, it's matrilineal descent, it's the mother's religion, and most of our rabbis do not do interfaith marriage. If you hear Rabbi Rick Jacobs speak, the president of the Union for Reform Judaism, which is the North American branch, we need to open our tents, we need to be inclusive. The parent who drives the child to Sunday school or to religious school or to Torah study or bar mitzvah lessons is a very, very important part of the family equation. And if we turn people away and we shut them out, then we are losing families. So his idea is to be as inclusive as possible. But at the end, different regions, people make different decisions. In some cases, the rabbis decide, and sometimes the communities that help support the rabbis in those decisions. There's not one answer, but I think one of the values of Reform Judaism is to be as inclusive as possible.
Do you see a difference between European Reform Judaism and North American Reform Judaism?
I'd say that one of the things I've learned, and I've been in this position for 3 years, and just so everyone's clear, I'm a volunteer. I do not get paid for any of this, which I didn't realize as much when I began. There are cultural differences everywhere. So even where there is interfaith marriage or there is a certain kind of conversion, every community has their own minhag. And even from coming from Argentina to here, it's already different. We have a region called the European Union for Progressive Judaism, and so just so you know, that region is 17 countries, including Hungary and Poland and Germany and France and the UK. It's very complicated. There's not one answer. But it is different. There are certain traditions and certain things. Some of them are much closer to the Holocaust and much more observant. Some are more to the right, some to the left. So I'd say probably no consistency. And that's why Tikkun Olam and our core values of social justice and equality are probably the things that we share.
Okay, could you give us some communal examples of communal engagement, good examples that you saw abroad?
So what do you mean by communal engagement?
People in their communities volunteering or different projects, something interesting. We can get back there later.
Okay. I'm trying to think because it's very different in every community, but for sure with the young people, and I didn't really talk a lot. I know in Latin America, the youth program is a little bit different. People belong to clubs and to movements. Worldwide, we have Netzer Olami, which is our youth movement, and we do see a lot of. We have Shnat Netzer, we have the Gap Year program, we have summer camps where the kids come together from all parts of the world. And many of them share projects and study together and pray together.
And talking about the youth and Israel and Zionism, the effect of the nation-state bill in diaspora Jewry, would you comment that?
There are people that have better expertise than I do in that, and Rabbi Gilad Kariv and Reuben Marco, the leaders of the Israel Movement for Progressive Judaism, are on top of it, and we're very grateful. They've really strengthened and built our movement there. And one of the challenges I would say, there is some dissatisfaction with Israel, especially amongst young people. And what I say is, support the institutions that reflect your values. If some of the things happening in Israel do not speak to you, or you're not happy with, the Israel Religious Action Center, Anat Hoffman and Rabbi Noah Satat are working hard for equality and egalitarian and women's rights and rights for people to pray wherever they choose. The Israel Movement, Rabbi Gilad Kariv, Reuben Marco, building congregations and strengthening and being the voice of progressive Judaism. One of the things we have found is I would say the disengagement of our young people towards Israel. I think we've raised up a generation who are very idealistic and have never lived without the state of Israel, so maybe don't understand what that felt like. And they're very judgmental of Israel, and it feels sometimes that Israel is not as concerned about diaspora Jewry as they used to be. And I think that's going to present some challenges for us. We just had a situation, which you're probably aware of in London. There were kids who gathered to say Kaddish for the victims of Gaza, who some of you know were terrorists, and that's a very big concern for us going forward. So educating the children, exposing them to life in Israel, presenting them with both sides of the story, the Israeli side and the non-Israeli side. But we have friends in Israel whose kids are, soldiers on the Gaza border or in the Israeli Navy in Haifa, and fighting for Israel's existence. So it's a tough balance.
Carole, have you experienced any tough situation for being a female reform leader?
Yes. I think it's challenging. I think as a movement that prides itself on being egalitarian and being equal and being open, I think some of my colleagues would tell you there are some challenges, that sometimes as women it is more difficult for us to attain senior leadership positions. And one of the things we've learned is to be very supportive of each other. And we're making progress. We're really encouraging and trying to identify young women leaders, young leaders in general, but women in particular, to encourage them, to give them the confidence to step up and take leadership positions. It is life-changing. You get back much more than you give, and you give a lot, as the gentleman from the Federation can tell you. The Jewish people are not easy people. But I think we've been here for thousands of years, and there's a reason that we care. We care about each other. We understand the importance that we're one for the other, that any one of us alone is nothing without the others. So it's incumbent on us, it is our duty to take care of each other.
And what do you see in common with all these communities and congregations you see abroad, Reform?
Complaining? No, just kidding.
Okay. That's a good one.
I think the Jewish people have generally, this is generally of course, have high standards for education, for study, for prayer. People are looking for meaning. People are looking for connection. I think connection is really, and I think as the World Union, that is one of the things that we do really well. And I know some of the women in our community have attended the Wilkenfeld seminar. I was just with Miriam Olshansky in Buenos Aires, and she did that program. And she's now connected to women all over the world. She studied, she came back. She's excited to tell her community about it, and all of you, of course, because it's part of the Latin American region. So investing in people and finding common ground and what we care about together is really, I think, what unites all of us.
Okay, thank you. Acho que vamos abrir para perguntas, né, das pessoas. Yeah.
My name is Nelson Horowitz. Some years ago, the magazine called The Economist, they published an article, which was a quite long article, where they say that the Reformed Jewish population is decreasing and the Orthodox is increasing. First of all, I would like to know if it's right, this information, and if it's right, please, I'd like to understand why this is going on.
My understanding from a study that the Israel movement just completed is that it's not the case, that the Reform movement is not shrinking, and the Orthodoxy has basically stayed the same despite the fact that they have in many cases, many more children than Reform families. So that's not my understanding. I think for Jews all over, it's a struggle to keep our kids engaged, to keep people engaged in the community and in the spirituality of Judaism, but we're working on it. I know, Daniel, if you have... I did such a good job, no questions. That's why.
Hello, Carole. My name is Mark Stanton. Both my wife, Adrienne, and I have been long-standing members of Bnei B'rith. And one of the challenges we continuously face, you just mentioned, was having non-Jews bring into Bnei B'rith and the whole discussion. And this seems like a forever argument. What is your best advice, concern, how to deal with this in promoting to be more open, inclusive, as you just said, and bring more people together for a cause?
We like to get to yes. We have lots of challenges and lots of opportunities, and I think as progressive Reform Jews, we like to see how we can get to yes, how we can be more inclusive. You know, we talk about Abraham having all the corners of his tent open and welcoming the strangers, and we know that we were strangers as well in Egypt. You never know, and I think Jay would attest to this, that we have friends whose children are intermarried themselves or one of the partners converted, and in some ways they're the most observant, devoted Jews. So I think you never know where it's going to come from. I'd like to give people an opportunity. Part of it is education, Mark. I think it's important for people to understand the roles and responsibilities of what it means to be a Jew, but understand it in a way that's relevant and applicable to their lifestyle today.
I think one of the core issues of the movement is forming new rabbis everywhere. And we have this problem in Latin America. We have had a lack of Reform rabbis in this region. And now with the Reform Institute, it's going the other way. How do you envision this initiative?
We're very, very, very excited about the Institute in Buenos Aires. We just came from there. We had a call with, I think there were 15 or 20 students, a couple of them in Spain even. These are people who are excited about their Judaism, excited about studying, and we understand we need to raise up rabbis who can speak the language, who can teach, who can preach, who can lead their congregants in life cycle, in their own language in a way that's meaningful. So, for example, we have an institute in Moscow as well, where we teach the students are taught in Russian. We have the Abraham Geiger College in Germany. We have the Leo Beck College in London, and we have the Hebrew Union College in Israel, and in 3 cities in the United States. So, for example, Hebrew Union College just ordained their 100th rabbi last November. And these are Israeli rabbis, grown-up Israelis who did the whole program in Hebrew and are now leading congregations in Israel. And that's making a very, very big difference. We also know, and you're very blessed in this congregation to have Rabbi Gershon, who is a wonderful advocate for this community and for Porto Alegre in general. And really, it's a privilege to see you work in the respect in which you're held. Now, what was I going to say? Sorry. I don't know. Raising up rabbis, of course. So we know that it's very important. We have a rabbi Rabbi Nathan Alfred in Singapore. And having the rabbi there has made a huge, huge difference for the community. Now they're talking about getting a building. They're talking about more and more life cycle events, more and more people joining the community. So having professional Jewish leadership is a very, very important thing, and we're very excited about the possibility. I think there's some kinks that will need to be worked out, and some, a lot of it is now done online. They don't have that much opportunity to come together in person, which makes a difference. But they're working on it, and I think with time and with resources, including financial, it will make a big difference.
I'll speak in Portuguese. Em primeiro lugar, seja muito bem-vinda em Porto Alegre.
Thank you.
Seja muito bem-vinda em Porto Alegre. Eu tenho um filho que estudou em Hamilton, bem próximo de Toronto, e tenho boas lembranças daquela região lá. Em termos de sobrevivência do judaísmo no Galut, na diáspora, eu tenho muitas dúvidas. Eu sou fã do judaísmo liberal, mas até que ponto nós podemos reformar o judaísmo para ele realmente manter-se vivo nas próximas gerações na diáspora?
Rabbi, do you want to answer that question? I think it depends on people. I really believe people need to be educated. People need to make their own choices. It is about choice. So, for example, our family, we keep kosher. Our home is kosher. I eat out, but I don't eat meat. I don't eat shellfish. That's my choice, and I understand why. That every time I put something in my mouth, it reminds me who I am. Other people make other choices. I go to Shabbat service every week. I go to Torah study. I study a couple of times a week with a teacher in Toronto. That's important to me. But, we can go for dinner and some people say, well, I'm going to have shrimp. Do you mind? I don't mind. That's their choice. So I think it's important to respect people's individual freedom and people's choices, but we still have to educate and remind people of our tradition and our history and where we come from. I think that's really, really important. Both of our children went to Jewish day school. I take my grandson when I'm home to talk Shabbat at Holy Blossom, where he learns Shabbat Shalom Hey. And when I said to him one time, I brought him home and I said, come, Rafi, I'm going to put you in the high chair and stuff. I was going to put your bib on. And he thought I said bim bom, which was, bim bom. So we're doing our part to teach our children and our grandchildren. I think it's very important. But I believe as a Reformed Jew, we make choices.
How do you envision Reform Judaism in Israel the next years?
That's a very difficult question for me and for everyone. I think the Israel movement for Progressive Judaism has made some wonderful inroads. They're up to, I think, over 50 congregations now. They've ordained many rabbis. They are a power, they are a voice. They are taking issues that are important to us and making them issues in Israel. But Israel, as we know, is complicated. There are many, many secular Israelis who, the joke is that the synagogue they don't belong to is the Orthodox one. And they don't go and they don't care, but they have trouble understanding what Reform Judaism means. And as one of the things I've noticed, for example, Rabbi Meir Azari of Beit Daniel in Tel Aviv, he does many, many weddings and bar mitzvahs during the course of the year. And those guests that come to attend the services, as with the other rabbis, learn a lot about Reform Judaism because they have a certain image of it and what it is and what it isn't. And then they come and they see the child gives a Devar Torah, they lay the trope and the parsha and they talk about it and they do a project of Tikkun Olam and people start to understand that it's a very real and relevant way to practice Judaism. On the other hand, the division of church and state in Israel is problematic. The government is in a certain position, and then we end up going to the Supreme Court for everything. I don't know where it's going to end up. And I think last year I had the opportunity to visit the Israeli ambassador to Canada in Ottawa, and I was with Gusti Braverman, who is World Zionist, head of Diaspora Affairs, and Les Rothschild, who's the past chair of Arts of Canada. And the ambassador said to us, "You're nothing. What do you have? You have 50 synagogues. Some of them are 10 people. You need to be in politics. You need to be at the table where influence is had." So that may be an option for us. I know many discussions with Rabbi Kareem and with Reuben and the leadership of IMPJ, and trying to find the way that. Also, some of the things that are issues in Israel are not necessarily issues for diaspora Jews, and vice versa. So, for example, the Women of the Wall. Many of you have known there was a big stone that just fell down there, very suspicious, right after Tisha B'Av. But for Israelis, they don't care. They don't go to the wall. It doesn't mean it's an icon for them. It's like an idol. They don't care about it. But for us as Reformed Jews, we want to have a place where we can pray, where the women can stand beside the men, beside their partner, and pray in a meaningful way. And not to be told you can't go here and you can't go there. If it's Israel for all Jews, if it's the homeland for the Jewish people, we need to be able to be at the wall, or wherever we choose to be.
Meu nome é Débora Glazer, eu sou coordenadora de grupo de mulheres aqui da SIBRA. Se chama Shirat Shalom. Amanhã nós vamos ter o prazer de conversar com você num grupo pequeno. A minha pergunta é, qual é a expectativa que vocês têm de nós, dos nossos pequenos grupos aqui?
So the women in the room will know that if you want something done, you ask a woman. We all know that. Okay, so I think it's changed. It's changed in the congregations a little bit today. Many of the younger women are working full time, so they don't have time for meetings in the afternoon. They're not interested in cooking and baking. They want more intellectual. Some of them want to come with their husbands and with their partners to attend events. So it is changing a little bit. But the women, and I sit on the board of the Women of Reform Judaism, they do incredible work and incredible fundraising, which ends up helping people. They give a lot of scholarship to our seminaries. They give a lot of money for Tikkun Olam, for social action. They really get the heart of what it is to be a Jew. And I hope there's a future. I think it's changing, and I think we need to be flexible. Also, social media has changed a lot of how we conduct our business today. In some ways, in a very good way. In some ways, with less social interaction, it's a little bit more challenging. But I think the women, they're on the right track, and they're flexible enough to change. If something's not working, they're not stuck with it. They're prepared to move on to something else. So I'm looking forward to speaking with you tomorrow.
Hi Carol, my name is Robert Newman. I am currently one of the board members of SIBRA, and I would like to ask you if you could please share some experiences you have seen from small communities as we are to become sustainable economically down the way. Thank you.
So I'll give you an example. Holy Blossom is the largest Reformed congregation in Canada, and we're members of the Union for Reformed Judaism, which is the region of North America. We had a system in North America where the synagogues paid dues, membership, whatever you want to call it, to the URJ, and for that you would get some benefits, whatever, magazines and some counseling if you needed. One of our rabbis, Rabbi Doug Marmer, who now lives in Israel and is the father of Rabbi Michael Marmer, said, we know that we as a congregation don't get $150,000 worth of services from URJ, but we know that we're supporting other congregations to enable them to be part of the union, to have the benefits of being part of a larger group. And that's how I feel. I feel that the larger congregations, the communities who are blessed with a lot of staff and with financial resources, it's incumbent on them to help support and seed the smaller communities and congregations. We belonged to Temple Sinai for many years. It was started by Holy Blossom. Holy Blossom, that Temple Sinai then gave money for Kol Ami. And that's how it goes, is that when you're in a position to help, you help other congregations as well. We're only strong if we're all strong together.
Evening. My name is Mario Caspari. I am on the board of one of the biggest elderly home in Brazil, not only in Porto Alegre. And I want to know whether World Union works with the problem of elderly people too, because it's today in the world, it's something everybody is concerned about. With the longest life people are having, so it's a problem for all of us.
Yeah, yes, it is. I agree. If you're lucky enough to live long enough. So it's not something that the World Union deals with specifically, but we talk a lot about the youth, and there are those of us who are getting older who say, you know, there is a segment of the community, and many people who have given their time, their effort, their skills to support the Jewish community in their day. It's now time for us to support them. So I know more from our federation in Toronto, my own community. The elderly is a very, very big part of our campaign and our budget. The vulnerable elderly who live below the poverty line. Those are issues for us. And I think as Jews, the elderly, the young, and everybody in between we have to care about. So nothing specific from World Union that way, but we don't turn our backs on anyone. So same-sex marriage it's by province, I believe. Jay, am I right? So Ontario, the province that we live in, it is legal for same-sex marriage. When we belonged to Temple Sinai, our rabbi spent 1 year studying the subject. He met with donors, he met with the founding families, and he decided after a year of study that he would perform same-sex marriage. He didn't impose it on the other two rabbis, and he came to the board and he said, I'm prepared to do it. This was a few years ago, as long as both are Jewish. So I told you, in Toronto, interfaith is not a big thing that Reform rabbis do. So he said if they're both Jewish, I'm happy to do the marriage. And he was concerned that because the law had passed, that maybe people would just be coming and not really want to be part of the community and just want to be married by a rabbi. So he said, well, we'll make them wait 1 year and then we'll marry them. Well, they'll be members of our community for 1 year and then we'll marry them. And someone at the board said, we don't ask anyone else to wait 1 year to be married, so why would we ask same-sex couples? And he said, that's why I love this synagogue. And he performed them. I don't think he's done a lot, I think maybe 4 or 5, but it's a non-issue. It's nothing.
Meu nome é Gladys Blumenthal. Eu gostaria que, se possível, você citasse 1 ou 2 projetos do seu conhecimento na área educacional e na área cultural.
So, we have, I mentioned many educational opportunities. what we're trying to do is to really streamline and whatever we do to do it the best. So, for example, we have our headquarters are in Jerusalem at Beit Shmuel. The building is also home to the Israel Movement, to HUC, to NIFTY, which is the North American Youth Group, and some of the things, so for example, cultural issues, we used to have a cultural department, we used to get tours of Jerusalem and of the environment and all around, and the Israel Movement said, you know, we're the Israelis, we're the ones who should be doing that. So we've been doing less of the cultural. The educational piece is very important for us, and that's something that we can offer to all of our constituents all around the world. So I mentioned the Butel seminar, and I just had dinner with Enrique Jarkowski last night in Buenos Aires. I don't know if you know him. And he said 25 years he was not involved in Judaism at all. He grew up Jewish. He was in Tokyo on a holiday. He ended up going to the synagogue. He said, oh yeah, I remember this. And he got involved again. He did the Butel seminar in Jerusalem, and he is now president of Libertat in Buenos Aires. He's on the executive board of the World Union. And that's the kind of inspiration and the leadership that comes from education. He did it in 2013. He met people from all over the world that he's still in touch with. And as I said, there are tours of Israel and an understanding of Reform Judaism. And it's one of the ways that we really, through the education, we do educators, we do social justice, the youth movement, a lot of education that goes on. Yes, that was American. Some of the things are more relevant to certain populations. So Daniel just mentioned the Civil Rights March that went on a couple of, when was it, about a year ago? But Rabbi Dick Hirsch, who's our founding president of the World Union, when we got to Jerusalem, was there with Martin Luther King many years ago. So there's a lot of social justice. A lot of it is divided up. So in the States, we have the Religious Action Center, where a lot of the social justice pieces happen. We like to go to expertise, people who are very good at what they do.
I would like to ask.
No,
it's a simple question, just to finish. In one hand, I see many people who would like to become Jews. In the other side, I see that anti-Semitism is growing up. How you can explain it's so difficult to be Jew around the world that there are people who would like to come and to be Jews? What I talking about, perhaps it's happened here in Brazil a lot. There are many people who discover his past, and they see that their grandfather or great-grandfather who was a Jew, and they would like to become Jews. Thank of God, we don't have a lot of anti-Semitism here in Brazil. Perhaps it's one of the reasons that many people would like to convert to be Jew. What happened in other places in the world? It's happened the same like in Brazil, that there are a lot of people. I receive between 1 or 2 phone calls every week from people who would like to convert. What happened in other places?
I think unfortunately anti-Semitism and now anti-Zionism as well, and a lot of times those two are equated, is a very prevalent issue today. And I think for many of the survivors, they can't believe that we're going through this again. We just had a survivor in our community in Toronto who has gone on the March of the Living many times with the students, and there was a poster of him for the Federation, and somebody wrote Achtung on it. And this is 2018, so it's still very prevalent, and it's something that we have to deal with. And our son, who loves to travel, Jay and I met him here in Brazil a couple of years ago, when it was in Argentina, and he said, he was much younger, and he said, I always know when I'm at Jewish place because there's boulders and barriers in front of the building. And that, as a parent, is heartbreaking. So I think we still have challenges that we need to deal with. In terms of, in Europe, Hungary is problematic, Poland is problematic, it's government, there's all kinds of reasons. So why do people want to convert? I don't know, because as Rabbi Freelander says, we're all Jews by choice. However, Jewish we choose, we make those choices. So we are all Jews by choice. But I think for people, when I look around and I come here and I don't know you, I know Rabbi and Daniel, but I feel like I'm with my family. I feel I'm very comfortable. We were at services in Buenos Aires. We know the prayers. I know the liturgy. The people invite me to their home. The same that we do when people come to visit us. There's something about it that's hard to explain, what it means to be Jew, what it means to care for each other. And I think people look at it, and I think the gentleman who asked about the old age home, I think not many communities care about their elderly and take care of their parents the way that we do. And of course I'm generalizing, but I think these are values that we hold very dear to us, educating our children and looking after the elderly and tikkun olam, repairing the world and building houses for people who are in floods and fires and all those things. That's who we are, and I can see that would be attractive. Does it come with many obligations? Absolutely. But I think unless something has obligations, it's maybe not as meaningful. So I feel blessed to be here with you, with my family in Porto Alegre, and I hope you'll come and visit us in Toronto. But we need to be proud and we need to stand tall and stand up for what we believe in as Jews. I think it's very important.
Last question about BDS in Canada. Any bad experiences, relevant experiences with that in campuses?
BDS is an issue, but the community, the leadership of the community doesn't feel it's as serious. The important part is to support the kids, especially on campus. So part of that is educating them, understanding, and teaching them to advocate, hasbara, to explain the position on Israel, why Israel does what it does, and to try to counterbalance it. I've been to other communities. I can tell you in South Africa, where they had apartheid, BDS is a very serious issue for the Jewish community and for others. And so we try to educate people. We try to present a balanced view. For the most part, it's serious, but it's not as serious as the media would have you believe. It seems to be calmed down right now.
Hello. Hi. My name is Maria. I'm a non-Jewish person, and I'm surrounded by lots of non-Jewish person. I'm sorry, I'm nervous.
If I'm not nervous, you don't have to be nervous.
No. Oh my God, sorry. Okay. We've been studying Torah for a while now. We are studying Kabbalah, and we haven't got this experience of being a Jew and living this culture that you fortunately have. But we sympathize a lot, and of course we are here now. I'd like to try to understand, why do you think that anti-Semitism is growing? Because our experience is that Jewish people are very inclusive, and as you said, you take care of others so much, so you empathize with others. So I don't understand why anti-Semitism is growing again. Do you have any answer for that?
Do I have a few hours? And it's almost a political answer, because I think what we see happening in the governments around the world is pretty scary for all of us, and particularly scary for Jews. More dictatorship, less freedom of the press, freedom of speech, the ability to gather and to protest. That's challenging, and we see it in the United States now. I don't want to get into politics because I live in Canada, but it is a challenge right now. And I think that sometimes when you study Torah and you study Kabbalah, you're there for a reason. So sometimes it's not as obvious why you're doing it or what the feeling is, but I believe it will come to you. That the Torah for us, the book of life, everything is in there, and as you know, we study it every week and every year, and every time we do the same line, it's a different meaning to us. It depends on where we are in our own lives at the time, and it's so relevant. And I encourage you to stay with your studies and stay with us, and I believe you will find it.
I believe you will find it.
Hello, I'm Patricia. I'm his wife.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. And I asked him a question, but he said that I had to ask you. In the Reform movement, you have more communities or more rabbis?
More communities. We
Yes.
need more rabbis.
You need more
we
rabbis.
need more rabbis. And as I said earlier, having a rabbi makes a very, very, very big difference in a community. We have wonderful lay leaders, we really do. And we have para-rabbinics, we have lots of people who are very capable and can do many things. But there's something about a sensitive, caring, bright rabbi who can really raise up the level of our practice, of our intention, of our kavanah, and we need more. We need many more.
What you're doing with these communities without rabbi, they are Masorti and another kind of movement?
No, we have in our own movement communities without rabbis, and what we try to do is to get rabbis to travel to them. So, for example, there's right now he's a lay person, but he's in the rabbinic program at the Institute, David Leo from CP in Sao Paulo, and he travels to the community in Recife once a month, and he helps lead them, and one day, God willing, he's going to be a rabbi, and he's going to have a community. So that kind of partnership and that kind of mentorship works very well.
It's a good future job.
Yes, it is. Lots of employment opportunities. I'm not saying it's an easy job, though. Rabbi, is it an easy job?
Eu gostaria, antes de encerrar, de pedir uma salva de palmas para a nossa tradutora Heidi Hoffman. Heidi, além de ser uma tradutora profissional, que voluntariamente está nos oferecendo este serviço esta noite para aqueles que não dominam inglês, também ela é diretora da nossa casa, da nossa SIBRA. Então, Heidi, eu gostaria que venhas para aqui, pois nós temos um presente para a nossa querida Carole, que venhas aqui. Eu não sei onde ficou o presente, acho que ficou contigo, então tu vai ter que sair da cabine. We have something for you, then she must come here downstairs. Eu não sei onde ficou alguém de vocês aqui?
My apologies for speaking too quickly.
Estamos entregando para a presidente da World Union o livro que narra a história da nossa instituição In the Land of the Gaúchos, que foi um livro organizado pela nossa associada Gladys Blumenthal, que aqui se encontra. Gladys Blumenthal organized the book, and many people who is here, sitting here wrote different chapters, okay, of this book. I know that Dr. Mario Laser wrote one of the chapters. Who else? Gretchen Baseman wrote other chapter. Claudia
I would love
Love.
for you to sign it. If anyone who has an article, that would be very special. You could sign it for you.
Ok, todo aquele que tem um artigo, por favor que venha aqui para assinar sim, o livro. Assim que...
So without translation, on behalf of the World Union, we'd like to present SIBRA with this beautiful mezuzah with the cloth, and to remember that you're part of our world progressive family and a valued member of our family. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carole.
Two kisses. I need you are aqui está a mezuzá, que vamos fixar agora, gente. Antes da Carole, eu gostaria de dar a honra, para Carole de fixar a mezuzá. Nossa última mezuzá foi fixada pelo rabino Joel Osseram, numa das portas da sinagoga, e agora nós vamos ter a honra que a presidenta da World Union fixe outra mezuzá. Para quem não conhece, a mezuzá tem um claf, tem um pergaminho e tem uma caixa, e aqui está escrito o Shema Israel, e está escrito que é a nossa obrigação de fixar estas palavras: Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Escuta, oh Israel, Adonai nosso Deus, Adonai único. Cada vez que entramos e cada vez que saímos da nossa casa, queremos sair e entrar abençoados. O fato de fixar a mezuzá exatamente na altura dos nossos olhos faz que lembremos dos preceitos e dos mandamentos que devemos cumprir, das nossas obrigações. E se pede a bênção para todo aquele que entre. Não me interessa quem é, de onde vem, isso aí também faz parte da filosofia inclusiva do judaísmo, desde os ancestrais. Isso aqui começou na época que os judeus, os hebreus, moravam no Egito. A 10ª praga remete a este costume, que se pintavam as batentes da casa com sangue dos animais. Isso aí foi a última praga, para que Deus pule e não castigue com a morte dos primogênitos. A partir daquele momento, então, que nós resgatamos, e cada lar judaico, cada instituição judaica recebe a sua mezuzá. Muito obrigado por estarem aqui conosco. Antes de passar a palavra para o presidente, nós vamos aproveitar para lhes convidar para as nossas próximas atividades. Acho que é muito importante ter aqui a presidente, mas também mostrar que nós estudamos. Então, na próxima terça-feira, dia 7 de agosto, se eu não me engano, dia 7 de agosto, às 19 horas, quando estamos muito próximos de Rosh Hashanah e de Yom Kippur, vamos começar um curso aberto para todos, que nós chamamos das 3T. Teshuvah, Tefila e Tzedakah. Teshuvah, arrependimento; Tefilá, reza; e Tzedakah, ato de justiça. São as 3T que irão nos possibilitar entender melhor as grandes festas, e se diz que estas 3T's atenuam o veredito de Deus ante cada judeu quando ele é julgado durante Rosh Hashanah e recebe a sua sentença no dia de Yom Kippur. Então, para conhecer melhor a liturgia, para se preparar melhor espiritualmente, estão todos convidados a participar deste curso e dos diversos momentos de estudo que nós temos aqui na comunidade. Horário, terça-feira, serão 4 encontros a partir do dia 7 de agosto, todas as terças-feiras de agosto, a partir do dia 7, das 19 às 20h30. Tá bom? Quem estiver interessado pode se inscrever ou vir diretamente para a nossa secretaria, para a nossa sinagoga. Tá bom? Mais alguma palavra? Presidente.
Carole, thank you again for the excellent remarks on Reform Judaism and challenges and conquers. What people can now have another view of what we have been doing in our movement globally. Pessoal, muito obrigado para todos por terem vindo. Uma boa noite a todos e até uma próxima atividade nossa. Vamos fazer uma fixação da mezuzá também, né?
E temos mais também, aqui tem quem me ajuda ali com as atividades. Dia 8/8, dia 8 de agosto, estamos lançando, aí puxando minhas orelhas se não falar isso. Dia 8 de agosto, quarta-feira, dia 8 de agosto, às 19h30, teremos uma palestra do professor Jacques Weinberg, que vai estar falando sobre os judeus no leste europeu, a história dos judeus no leste europeu. Por que esta palestra? Porque, se Deus quiser, no mês de maio de 2019, a SIBRA vai lançar uma viagem para 4 cidades. A gente vai ir para Berlim, Praga, Budapeste e Viena. Então, quem estiver interessado em participar desta viagem, não precisa vir conosco, mas se estiver interessado na temática, dos judeus no leste europeu e também quiser saber mais sobre a nossa viagem, será muito bem-vindo. Se a viagem vem a Mercator, irá nos levar para o leste europeu. Já temos 6 pessoas interessadas. Sabias, Ali? Já 6 pessoas, nem lançamos. Então, quem tiver interesse, gostaria que se junte a nós aquele dia 8 de agosto. Agora sim, chega. Denúncias. Boa noite, bom retorno para casa. Quem quiser nos acompanhar neste momento de fixar a mezuzá, está convidado a ficar mais 5 minutos. Obrigado.
Okay. So, 1, 2, 3. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher קידשנו בקדושה וציוונו לקבוע מזוזה. Amém. Bendito sejas tu, Deus, Rei do Universo, que nos prescreveste a fixar a mezuzá. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. Amém. Baruch atah beboeja, Baruch atah betzeteja. Abençoados sejam na hora de chegar e sejam todos abençoados na hora de sair.